Hey, what is up, fellow raiders? This is Vulcan Dan, and in today's Raid Shadow Legends video, we are going to talk about Bommal the Dreadhorn and Astranyx the Dark Fae, the two new Doom Tower bosses that we are expecting to be introduced next week when Doom Tower resets. So as you can see here, we have 1 week from the new Doom Tower rotation. We're expecting the two new Doom Tower bosses to show up. And I just want to say that it's going to be quite a challenge. After I talk about the bosses, after going through their skills, I will let you know which champs I'm thinking of using and which champs I would want to avoid using for these two Doom Tower bosses. Alright, so let's get to it. We have first Astranyx, the Dark Fae. A1, AoE, 100% chance of placing Leech. Alright, not too bad, you know. A2 AoE, depending on your affinity or the affinity of the champions that you're using, this A2 will have different effects. So so this A2 steals one random buff from each enemy according to the number of magic champions on the enemy team, which is of course your team. One buff for each magic champion. And then steals the turn meter from each enemy according to the number of force champions on the enemy team. 10% turn meter for each force champion. 25% chance of placing a true fear on each enemy for 1 turn. Chance increases by 25% for each void champion on the enemy team. And lastly, heals Astranyx by 10% of her max HP for each spirit champion on the enemy team. Alright, so at first, this skill seemed to be very difficult to deal with because, of course, there's a chance to steal buffs, steal turn meter. So if you have 5 magic champions, that will steal 5 buffs. If you have 5 force champions, the enemy will steal 50% turn meter, and 10% from each of your champs, and then the enemy will get 50% turn meter. And then if you have 4 or more void champions, this will be 100% chance to place the true fear. And then of course this can be anywhere from 10% to 50%. So I was quite worried about this, but as I read through the skill, as I thought about it, I don't think this is that bad. Okay, so even if you have like 1 to 2 magic champions on your team, then you get 1 or 2 buffs stolen. I don't think that's such a big deal. You can always reapply those buffs, or you can wait for the buff to wear off from the opponent. That's not such a big deal. Turn meter, let's say 10 to 20%. You have 2 force champions. That's something that you can live with. I would say try to avoid having too many void champions on your team, maybe 1 or 2 at most, so that you just have a 25 to 50% chance of getting the true fear. True fear is quite a nasty debuff to deal with, but again, it's not that big of a problem. This one though, if you have 5 spirit champions, then this will be a 50% heal. So that can be a challenge, but remember, this is on a 3-turn cooldown. You will not get the skill every single turn. You will not get your buff stolen, your turn meter stolen every single turn. This is on a 3-turn cooldown, so I think this is not too bad of a skill. His or her A3 is an AoE, and then it's an ally attack AoE, so all living allies will team up and join this attack. Damage increases by 25% for each living ally. This will not be a problem if of course the enemy does not have any living allies at all. So it would be best for you to simply nuke them down or provoke them or CC them. But yeah, not too bad. An A3 right there. A4, this is what they were talking about during the teaser. Banishes 1 enemy champion and spawns a mirror copy of them onto Astranyx's team. Places a fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. This one I found a little bit funny, you know, whenever Astranyx will kidnap, or as the skill name says, dark abduction, you know. So he'll kidnap one of your enemy champions or one of your champions, and then places a fear on your entire team. So it's like I could just see a comic there wherein you got one champion stolen, and then the others are trembling in fear, which is sort of a funny visual. But yeah, it also increases Astranyx dark energy counter by 1. All right, we'll know more about this dark energy later on. So this is a not too bad of a skill. I don't think having one champion stolen, I would think that, but I might be wrong here. I'm thinking that once you defeat the enemy champion, that champion will come back to you. This will be a problematic skill if this banish is permanent, meaning every 4 turns you will lose one of your champions. So if you haven't defeated Astranyx by then you will lose the fight because you don't have any champions left. So I'm not sure about that. I hope that once you defeat the mirror copy, then you get that champion back on your team. But yeah, I'm not too sure about that. A5, which is the passive, places a perfect veil on Astranyx the Dark Fae for 3 turns and spawns mirror copies of all enemies onto Astranyx team at the start of the battle. So this one was not talked about during the teaser. At the start of the battle, you will have to face your entire team. So Astranyx will create a mirror copy of all of your champions, so it will be like a 5-on-6 kind of fight at the beginning. And then summons mirror copies of all enemies onto Astranyx's team every time her dark energy counter reaches 5, which is done by this this A4 right here. Yeah, so you will have to get that 5 times. So because we have this here, I'm thinking that this will not, this A4 will not totally just banish all of your champs and not return them after you defeat the mirror copy. So I'm thinking that you will get your champion back after you defeat it. So that's what I'm thinking. Don't need to worry too much about this. Because for the dark energy counter to reach 5, that will have to, that will take a lot of turns, and hopefully you would have already defeated Astranyx by then, before this reaches 5. Also places a perfect veil on Astranyx the Dark Fae for 3 turns every time her dark energy counter reaches 5. Again, I don't think it will get to that. I would think that you would be able to defeat her by the time it reaches 5. And it resets after reaching 5 dark energy counters. Yeah, all right. And of course, she has all of the other passives that are common in most of the Doom Tower champions. Decreased effect of the turn meter reduction, enemy max HP cannot exceed 10%, and also immune to a lot of the CCs, block cooldown increasing effects. All right, so I don't think Astranyx is as bad as the other champion. She has this new mechanic right here that banishes your champion and creates the mirror copy. So that's a cool new mechanic that the enemy has, but I don't think it's that bad. I think the strategy here is whenever you start the boss fight, you just have to make sure that you go fast enough, or you increase your own team's turn meter, decrease the other team's turn meter, so that you have a chance to go first. Hopefully all 5 of your champs go first before the other team does. So you might want to bring a Lysandra to make sure that you get that first turn, assuming that her turn meter skill is not on cooldown, so that you can either nuke the mirror copies down, or you can CC them, put those stuns or provokes out so that they don't get a turn, and then you can focus on Astranyx after that. So yeah. Because when she does not have mirror copies, like if you're able to nuke those down fast enough, A3 will not do anything. A4 is not too bad, and you just have to deal with the A1, which is the leech, and the A2, which does these random stuff. So the thing is, you want to make sure that you beat those 5 mirror copies at the beginning of the battle as soon as you can, or you can if you can't beat them in 1 turn, you can find some CC champs, make sure that they don't get a turn. All right, I just want to talk about a few champs that you want to avoid using when facing Astranyx. You want to avoid champs that will have passives or will have effects that will protect the entire team at the beginning of a fight, such that before they even get a turn, it would make them more difficult to defeat, such as this Void legendary right here, Krisk. Now, if you just imagine if Astranyx creates a mirror copy of Krisk at the beginning of the fight, and let's say you get your turn meter, you go first, but then Krisk has this passive right here. At the start of each round, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 50% of this champion's max HP. So at the beginning, when you're trying to beat down all of those 5 mirror copies, Krisk, of course, if he's part of your team, he'll be part of their team, and you will have to deal with these shields even though they haven't had a single turn yet. So I think don't bring Krisk for this fight. And other similar champs such as, I think it's a Barbarian. Yeah, Ursuga also has a similar passive, decreases the damage of all allies receive from critical hits by 30%. Yeah, so yeah, don't put Ursuga in your team as well, although she is mostly an arena champ. Another champ that I don't think that you should use is Duchess. Duchess has this passive right here that decreases the damage taken by all allies from AoE attacks by 25%. So you're thinking you're going to nuke them down, but Duchess is there, decreases all of your damage, and they will eventually get a turn. She'll get her shields up, she'll get her perfect veils up, and block debuff and revives. So yeah, so don't use Duchess in your team when facing against Astranyx. And someone like a Tormin. Where's Torm? Yeah, there you go. Tormin, of course, because of his infamous passive. So these kinds of passives, or these kinds of champs that have these kinds of passives, I would advise you not to use them against Astranyx the Dark Fae, because you will just have a hard time dealing with your own champs, because you will have to face mirror copies of them. All right, so but as for the champions that you can use, I don't think it's that tricky. Just use any champs that can increase your own turn meter, decrease the other team's turn meter, so you can use Lysandra, things like that, and I think you'll do fine. I don't think this is a very difficult champ. I think she is a mid-tier in terms of the Doom Tower bosses. But this other guy right here, Bommal the Dreadhorn, when I read his skills and then I thought about it, I think this guy is going to be a problem. I think he's going to be quite difficult. All right, so let's take a look at Bommal. A1, AoE, decrease bomb debuff detonation countdowns by 1 turn. Also instantly activates any HP burn debuffs on each target and decreases the duration of those debuffs by 1 turn. All right, yeah. He does have this A2 that works with the A1, which is an AoE HP burn on each enemy for 3 turns. Also has a passive effect. Enemies receive 100% more damage from HP burn debuffs for each bomb debuff they are under. So you want to avoid HP burn and bombs from Bommal the Dreadhorn. There's also, I think the best strategy here is to just bring a lot of resistance. Build up a lot of resistance in all of your champs, bring a resist aura. I think that's the best way to deal with this, because as you can see here in his A3, removes all buffs from all enemies, attacks them, places a bomb debuff on each enemy that detonate after 2 turns, and then places 1 additional bomb debuff for each buff removed by the skill. The bomb debuffs cannot be blocked or removed. So that would be a problem for champions like Doom Priest, for any block debuff champion, or any champion that can remove debuffs. Those will not work for this fight. So the old trusty Doom Priest that we have been using for previous Doom Tower bosses, unfortunately, will probably not work for this one. The Doom Priest passive will work for the HP burn, but not for the bombs, and you would want to, of course, avoid those bombs at all costs. And so yes, I think the way to do this is to just get high resistance on your team. But For new players, for free-to-play players who don't really stack a lot of resistance, I think this champion or this boss will be a big problem. All right, let's take a look at his A4. It places a 50% increase attack on Bommal the Dreadhorn for 5 turns, then summons 2 Dread Bombs and grants an extra turn. So this on the 5-turn cooldown. 5-turn increase attack, so that's basically a permanent increase attack on the boss, and summons those 2 Dread Bombs, those adds on the side. The increase attack buff cannot be removed. Alright, and then passive summons 1 Dread Bomb every time Bommal's turn meter is decreased. So this doesn't take into account how much turn meter you decrease. As long as you decrease the boss's turn meter at any point, whether it's a 10% or a 100%, you will get a Dread Bomb every single time. So you would want to avoid that, I would think. A5. Each time an enemy places any debuff except bomb debuffs on Bommal, places a bomb debuff on that enemy that detonates after 2 turns. This was the skill or the passive that I was most worried about. Every single time you place a debuff on Bommal, so those are decrease attack, decrease defense, weaken, decrease speed, you will be able to place them, but you will get more bombs on you, and those bombs again cannot be blocked or removed, and that is of course a big problem. So I think you just really need to counter this by having a lot of resistance. Also, whenever a bomb debuff detonates on an enemy, has a 100% chance of placing a stun on all other enemies for 1 turn, and of course Bommal receives 200 more damage from bomb debuff. So that stun on your entire team 100% is a big problem. So at all costs you want to avoid taking bombs on your team, but on the flip side, you would want to use bombs against Bommal the Dreadhorn. He receives 200% more damage, so that's times 3 more damage from bombs, so that's a good thing. And of course he has the usual passives that all Doom Tower bosses have. Let's take a look at the Dread Bomb skills. A1 explodes at the start of each turn and deals pure damage to each enemy equal to 40% of this max HP if the Dread Bomb is not under a freeze. Deals pure damage to each enemy equal to 20% of their max HP instead if the Dread Bomb is under a freeze at the start of the turn. Damage inflicted will ignore shield buffs, and of course I would think that this would ignore defense as well. I'm thinking that this one is similar to a bomb, because if it is a bomb damage, then it will ignore defense, but it just says here that it ignores shields. But either way, you would want to bring a freeze champion to reduce that from 40% to 20%. So having an AoE freeze champs that does not place any other debuffs on the boss will work. The problem is, when I was looking through the AoE freeze champs, some of them do have a lot of other debuffs, and that would of course be a problem. So we have to be careful about that. Dread Bomb's A2. The Dread Bomb is immune to all debuffs, effects, and sources of damage except its own skills and freeze and HP burn debuffs. Fills the Dread Bomb's turn meter by 20% every time it receives damage from an HP burn debuff. So no AoE HP burn champions, and we will talk about that in a bit. All right, first let's talk about our bombs. We were talking about our bomb champions that we were not using before, like War Mother, Astrolith, Lord Shazar, Soul Drinker. Some of them are good, some of them turned out to be not so good for this champ. We have I'll talk about Astrolith first. Astrolith has this turn meter fill A1, which is good for this boss fight. Has the bomb on her A2. I don't think we will be able to use this A3, unfortunately. So it's just turn off the A3 and then A1 and A2 for this fight, and that is good, consistent bomb damage on the boss. And it's a good thing that Astrolith does not place any other debuff other than bombs, so that works for this boss. for this boss. So if you have built up an Astrolith, now is a good time to use her. Also, let's talk about, where is he? Here we go. Soul Drinker. I think Soul Drinker will also be a good choice or option for a bomb champ here. A1, decrease bomb debuff detonation countdowns by 1 turn. 3-time random hitter, decrease bomb debuff detonation by 1 turn again. And AoE double hitter, each hit has a 100% when book chance of placing a bomb that detonates after 3 turns, plus a nice passive right here that places 2 bombs on each enemy that detonates after 2 turns when this champion dies. I think we can make use of this passive. Of course, we'll have to bring a reviver to use this passive against Bommal. So I think Soul Drinker, because he does not place any other debuffs, because we don't want that, the more debuffs you place on the boss, the more bombs he will place back on you. So avoid placing debuffs on the boss. So Soul Drinker is perfect for that. Now let's take a look at someone like Lord Shazar. Now I think he will do okay if he's your only bomb champion. He has this triple hitter A1, but of course this one right here, damage increases by 15% for each debuff on the target. I don't think you'll have many debuffs unless of course it's a bomb, so this is okay. This one is the one that I'm worried about. 50% increase attack, block debuffs on this champ for 2 turns, grants an extra turn. This is okay until, or if you run into Bommal's A3 right here that removes all buff from all enemies, places 1 additional bomb for each buff removed by this skill. That bomb debuff cannot be blocked or removed. If that happens on Lord Shazar, get ready to revive him because that's 2 debuffs right there. So yeah, he will do okay. I think Soul Drinker and Astrolith are still better. Yeah, so I think Lord Shazar will be a good third option for your bomb champs. I also want to talk about War Mother. A lot of us were thinking that we can finally use her, but look at her A1. Her A1 attacks 2 times. Each hit places a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. So that's each hit. So that's twice. You will put 2 debuffs on the boss. That means 2 bombs back on War Mother. So I don't think that's a good skill. It's on her A1, so she will do this a lot. And I think that will be the death of her. So I don't think that War Mother will be a good champion for Bommal. I could be wrong, but I don't think she will work as good as Astrolith or Soul Drinker. So yeah, so that's quite unfortunate there. I don't think we will be able to use War Mother. We don't have a lot of bomb champions in this game, so our options are very limited. I wonder for those accounts with no bomb champions, will they still be able to beat this boss with just non-bomb damage? I think it will be a very difficult fight. Also, I just want to talk about, where is that? There you go. Sikia Flame Tongue. You might think about her passive right here. All allies will heal by 3% of their max HP from HP burn debuffs instead of receiving damage and losing HP. Bommal the Dreadhorn does place those HP burn on his A2, so you might be thinking, okay, we can use Sikia to counter that and hopefully heal us, with those HP burns. But Sikia does place a lot of debuffs herself. HP burn, you don't want to place HP burn on the Dread Bombs. That will increase their turn meter. And she has this weaken and decrease defense right here. I don't think that's a good idea as well. Anyway, decreased defense doesn't really help in the bomb damage because bombs already ignore defense. So we can't take advantage of the weaken, but of course, placing more debuffs on the boss will mean more bombs coming back at us. So I'm not sure about Sikia. Her HP burn is going to be a problem unless you deactivate this, and not sure about this one as well. So yeah, so I was thinking about her, still not sure. We have to, of course, see the actual boss and play test, see which champion will work. Yeah, going back to Demon Spawn, I think Achak the Wenderin will actually do well as your AoE freeze champ. Assuming that this A3 will work as expected, 70% chance, book this to a 90% chance of placing a freeze for one turn on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense. So I'm expecting that the Dread Bombs will have higher attack than their defense. So if that is the case, then this A3 is perfect for those Dread Bombs. And she also does not place any other debuff, which is perfect for Bommal the Dreadhorn. She does place this block debuff and strengthen. The boss does have that skill that removes your buffs, so that will be a problem as well. But strengthen is a very good skill to have, very good buff to have for this boss, because bombs will of course ignore defense, so increased defense will not be as good as strengthen. So having strengthen, assuming that of course you don't run into that skill, so you might have to speed tune this, or you might have to manual the boss to make sure that the strengthen is there when the bombs go off, and make sure that the strengthen is not there whenever the champ will use that skill that removes the buffs. So a lot of and they did mention this during the teaser, that you'll have to do a little bit of timing, you know. So they're making this very difficult for us. All right. And also, I was looking at the good revivers for Bommal the Dreadhorn to work well with or to synergize with Soul Drinker's passive, and I actually saw Godseeker and Aniri. I think she will be probably the best reviver for Bommal the Dreadhorn, because she has this, of course, revive a dead ally with 50% HP, fills their turn meter by 50%, and then resets the cooldown on all of their skill. Can book this down to a 4-turn cooldown, and of course her passive that has more revives. She has some heals in her A1 and A2 as well, so I think Godseeker will be perfect for this one. I looked at the other revivers. A lot of them have decreased turn meter skills, which is something that we want to avoid using against Bommal the Dreadhorn, because of his A4 passive effect right here that will summon Dread Bombs. So Godseeker does not have a decreased turn meter skill, so I think she would be the best reviver for this champion, especially with her passive right there. And actually, I think having her in Relentless gear would be good, so that we can cycle through these cooldowns right here. This is a 4-turn cooldown when booked, so is her A3. Having her in Relentless gear would of course help out with those cooldowns. Having her in Reflex will not be as effective as Relentless, because she has this A2, A3, and passive, unless you deactivate her A2. But this A2 is quite good as well with the heals, 15% heal. So I don't want to deactivate this skill. So yeah, so Reflex will not work as well for her. Put her in Relentless. At least that is what I'm thinking right now. So we just got news of this, the abilities and the skills of the 2 new Doom Tower bosses today. These are just my early thoughts. I could be right, I could be wrong, but we'll see. These are just some things that I'm throwing around. If you have any ideas or any champs that you think that might be good for this Doom Tower boss, please let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you found this useful. Let us all learn together. Let us work together and beat these 2 new Doom Tower bosses that will show up a week from now. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.